Welcome back to our channel. You know old is gold, but these rare coins that are most valuable than you think. Don't spend these coins if you have these coins. Please watch complete video. Let's start this. Imagine this. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, it carries a story so powerful that it has changed lives, quietly, instantly, and forever. What if I told you that a 1940 no-mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny has been associated with values reaching as high as $876,000? Yes, a penny. Before you laugh, pause for just a second, because history has a habit of rewarding those who pay attention. This is not a get-rich-quick fantasy. This is about knowledge, timing, and recognizing opportunity before it disappears. Most people overlook pennies. They drop them. They ignore them. They say, "It's just 1 cent." And that mindset alone has cost Americans millions of dollars over the decades. Here's the uncomfortable truth: rare coins don't announce themselves. They hide in plain sight. And the 1940 no-mint Mark wheat penny is one of the most fascinating examples of that hidden power. Let's rewind the clock to 1940. America was standing on the edge of global transformation. The economy was shifting, war loomed overseas, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins at a pace meant to serve a nation preparing for uncertainty. In Philadelphia, pennies were struck without a mint mark, perfectly normal at the time. But what wasn't normal were the subtle errors, die variations, and strike anomalies that slipped through quality control. Those tiny imperfections, unnoticed in 1940, are now the very reason collectors compete fiercely today. Here's where things get interesting. Not all 1940 wheat pennies are created equal. Some carry rare die errors, off-metal strikes, or microscopic doubling that only trained eyes, or professional graders, can identify. And when these coins surface in high grades, especially with dramatic mint errors, demand doesn't whisper. It roars. Auction houses don't ask politely. They compete. Collectors don't hesitate. They act. Because they know something most people don't: rarity plus condition plus history equals serious money. Now let me ask you a question that might make you uncomfortable. How many pennies have you thrown away in your lifetime? Be honest. Thousands? Tens of thousands? Funny how the smallest denomination often carries the biggest regret. And here's the fear factor. Many of the most valuable coins ever discovered were found by people who almost didn't look. Almost tossed it. Almost missed it. Almost stayed average. Almost is expensive. But let's shift from fear to excitement, because this is where opportunity lives. The 1940 no-mint Mark wheat penny has been documented in elite collector circles as one of the most searched and submitted coins for grading. Why? Because examples with rare errors and exceptional preservation are incredibly scarce. When one appears, it doesn't sit on the market. It moves fast. Quietly. Powerfully. Sometimes for prices that sound unreal, until the hammer drops. And yes, there have been reported valuations and private transactions reaching into the high six figures, with figures cited around $876,000 for extraordinary specimens. These are not everyday coins. These are once-in-a-generation finds. The kind that change retirement plans, fund legacies, and redefine what wealth can look like from something as simple as a penny. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. If someone offered you a brand new luxury car in exchange for a single penny, would you at least look at the penny first? Exactly. Awareness changes behavior. And right now, awareness is your advantage. We're entering a market moment where rare coins are in unprecedented demand. Inflation concerns, market volatility, and a renewed appreciation for tangible assets have pushed collectors and investors toward historical coins like never before. And older Americans, those who lived closer to these eras, who inherited collections, who saved coins, just in case, are sitting on untapped potential. The smart money isn't asking if rare coins matter anymore. It's asking who owns them. This brings us to the turning point. Act 2 is about realization. If you own old pennies, especially wheat pennies from the 1940s, you are already closer to opportunity than most people will ever be. The difference between those who profit and those who don't is action. Coins don't increase in value because they exist. They increase because someone recognizes what they are, verifies them, and brings them to the right market. And here's the urgency: time is not neutral. Coins get lost, damaged, spent by accident. Estates are cleared without evaluation. Every year, rare coins disappear from circulation forever. That means the remaining examples become even more valuable. Scarcity accelerates demand. Demand accelerates price. This is why seasoned collectors move decisively. They don't wait for permission. They don't wait for perfect certainty. They verify, authenticate, and position themselves. Now Act 3, the payoff. This is about empowerment. You don't need to be a professional numismatist to start. You need curiosity, discernment, and the willingness to take your collection seriously. That 1940 no-mint mark wheat penny you've ignored for years? It deserves attention. It deserves professional evaluation. Because wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it waits patiently, hoping you'll notice. And let's be clear, this isn't just about money. It's about legacy. About turning overlooked history into real financial strength. About living a life where knowledge works for you, not against you. The people who build wealth aren't always the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who recognize value before the crowd does. So the next time you see a penny, don't see 1 cent. See possibility. See history. See leverage. Because somewhere out there, someone found a coin just like the one you might already own, and their life changed forever. The only question left is simple, and it deserves your full attention. Will you look, or will you keep walking? Because opportunity doesn't knock twice. And sometimes, it sounds exactly like the quiet clink of a penny hitting the table. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, maybe in a dusty coffee can, maybe in a forgotten drawer, there is a single penny quietly sitting there, worth more than most luxury homes. A penny that looks ordinary. Brown. Small. Easy to ignore. And yet, this 1 cent coin has been whispered about in elite collector circles, auction houses, and private sales as commanding prices approaching $879,000. Now here's the unsettling question: what if it's already in your possession, and you just don't know it yet? Welcome to the hidden world of the 1941 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, a coin born during one of the most intense moments in American history. This wasn't just another year. This was 1941. The United States was standing on the edge of World War II. The economy was shifting. Metal supplies were under pressure. And the U.S. Mint was producing coins at massive speed, under conditions that left behind something far more valuable than spare change: rare errors, anomalies, and coins that were never meant to survive. Most people have already spent fortunes without realizing it. Pennies are tossed into jars, left at gas stations, dropped into couches like they mean nothing. And that casual habit has cost Americans millions of dollars. Because when it comes to rare coins, value doesn't announce itself. It hides in plain sight. The 1941 no-mint mark penny was struck in Philadelphia, but certain error examples from that year, with exceptional preservation, striking anomalies, and near-perfect detail, have created a feeding frenzy among serious buyers. These are not hobbyists. These are investors. Wealth builders. People who understand that scarcity plus history equals power. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time a penny bought you freedom? Exactly. And yet this one might. That's the paradox. The same coin you walk past on the sidewalk could be the key to a completely different lifestyle. And that's where excitement starts to mix with fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of having already had it, and let it go. Because here's the truth no one likes to admit: once a rare coin leaves your hands, the opportunity leaves with it. Collectors don't pay nearly $900,000 for hype. They pay for proven demand, elite rarity, and the emotional weight of American history. The 1941 wheat penny represents the last calm before global chaos. It carries Abraham Lincoln's image into a wartime economy and into the hands of modern wealth seekers. Coins from this year, when struck with rare errors or preserved at extraordinary levels, have been positioned at the top of want lists worldwide. And yes, the market has spoken. Prices discussed at the highest levels have reached the $879,000 range, depending on condition, provenance, and error classification. Here's a quick pattern break. Be honest with yourself. If I offered you a penny right now and told you it could change your retirement, would you laugh? Or would you lean in a little closer? That moment right there, that shift, that's where smart people separate themselves from the crowd. Because wealthy individuals don't dismiss small things. They investigate them. The demand is not slowing down. In fact, it's intensifying. As inflation rises and traditional investments feel uncertain, tangible assets like rare coins are becoming safe havens for serious money. And pennies like this one? They're not being made anymore. Ever. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or locked away in private collections, which tightens supply and drives urgency through the roof. When one surfaces on the market, competition is fierce, discreet, and fast. There are no second chances. Right now, you are either someone who owns history, or someone who unknowingly spends it. The difference is knowledge and action. People who live wealthy lifestyles don't wait for permission. They recognize moments of leverage and move. If you have old pennies, especially wheat pennies from the early 1940s, you are not holding loose change. You are holding potential negotiating power in a market hungry for exactly what you may already own. Let me leave you with this. The greatest regret isn't that people never had valuable coins. It's that they never checked. They never slowed down long enough to look twice. And in a world where one penny can be worth nearly $1 million, that kind of oversight is expensive. So before another day passes, before another coin disappears into a jar or gets spent without a thought, ask yourself one final question. In 1942, America was at war, families were tightening their belts, and no one, absolutely no one, was paying attention to the small copper penny passing from hand to hand. But what if I told you that one of those ordinary-looking pennies, forgotten in a drawer or coffee can for decades, has stunned the coin world with valuations reaching as high as $889,000? Yes, nearly $1 million for a single 1-cent coin. And here's the uncomfortable question that should already be on your mind. What if you already own one, and don't even know it? This isn't a fantasy. It's not a get-rich-quick story. It's a documented reality of American numismatic history. Today, we're uncovering the powerful story behind the 1942 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, a coin born in a moment of national urgency, quietly carrying errors so rare that elite collectors aggressively compete for them today. If you've ever held on to old pennies thinking, these might be worth something someday, stay with me, because the clock is ticking faster than most people realize. Let's rewind to 1942. The United States was fully engaged in World War II. Copper was a strategic metal, essential for ammunition and military equipment. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coinage quickly while preparing to transition away from copper entirely. Mistakes happened. Not obvious mistakes. Subtle ones. Errors so small they slipped past inspectors but so significant that they later rewrote the value of a 1-cent coin forever. And right in the middle of that chaos, the Philadelphia Mint struck pennies with no mint mark, some of which contained highly sought-after errors that collectors now consider legendary. Now here's where the story gets interesting, and a little unsettling. Most people think rare coins look rare. They don't. These pennies look ordinary. Abraham Lincoln on the front. Wheat stalks on the back. Nothing flashy. Nothing screaming, I'm worth a fortune. And that's exactly why so many of these coins were spent, lost, or ignored. Imagine using a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a newspaper. Painful, right? But it happened. Over and over again. So what makes this coin different? Why is demand so intense? Certain 1942 no-mint mark wheat pennies were struck on incorrect metal planchets, while others showed dramatic die errors, off-metal compositions, or transitional anomalies connected to the wartime shift in materials. These are not flaws, these are fingerprints of history. Collectors don't see damage. They see scarcity, story, and status. And when one of these coins appears at auction, serious money shows up fast. Let me ask you something, be honest. When was the last time you really looked at the pennies you own? Not glanced at them. Looked. Because right now, high-end collectors, investment funds, and private buyers are actively hunting these coins. Demand is not cooling off, it's intensifying. Wealthy buyers want tangible assets. They want history they can hold. And they want coins that almost no one else can get. That's why record-setting examples of this 1942 penny have commanded values approaching $889,000 in elite markets. And here's the part most people don't like to hear. Coins like this don't stay undervalued forever. Once awareness spreads, once the remaining examples are locked into private collections, the window closes. The opportunity doesn't disappear, it just becomes unreachable for everyday people. This is how wealth quietly changes hands. Not loudly. Not on the evening news. But in auction rooms, private sales, and moments when someone finally realizes what they've been sitting on for 40, 50, 60 years. Now, quick pattern interrupt, because this matters. If pennies were truly worthless, nobody would be fighting over them. Nobody would be insuring them. Nobody would be storing them in vaults. And yet, here we are. Funny how the smallest denomination can carry the biggest surprise, isn't it? This coin represents more than money. It represents timing, knowledge, awareness. The kind of advantage most people only wish they had earlier in life. For many Americans between 30 and 65, these pennies came from parents, grandparents, old collections, estate boxes. They weren't bought, they were inherited. And that makes them even more powerful. Because the wealth potential was already handed to you. It just hasn't been unlocked yet. We are living in a moment where rare U.S. coins are being reclassified as serious alternative assets. And the 1942 no-mint mark wheat penny sits right at the intersection of history, scarcity, and desire. Collectors don't ask if these coins matter. They ask who owns them. And when one surfaces, the conversation changes immediately. So here's the truth, delivered with respect and urgency. If you own old pennies, especially wheat cents, you are holding unfinished business. Ignoring them doesn't make them less valuable. It just delays the moment someone else recognizes their worth. The market is active. The buyers are ready. And the coins that surface first always have the advantage. Because the real tragedy isn't that these coins exist. It's that some people never realize what they had, until it's gone. So take a moment. Look again. That small brown penny might not just be a piece of the past, it might be your entry into a completely different financial future. And in a world where opportunity rarely announces itself, this one has been quietly waiting since 1942. Imagine leafing through an old coin album you found in the attic. You flip past decades you barely remember collecting, 1950s cents, 1960s nickels, 1970s quarters with no special story to tell. And then you notice something different. You look closer, and your heart thumps a little faster. That's a 1944 wheat penny, but something's off. No mint mark. Not unusual at first glance, but this one looks off-center, like the design was slapped onto the coin wrong. As you tilt it in the light, you wonder, could this really be the coin worth nearly $1 million? Before we go further, let me break your brain for a second. A coin that most Americans have treated as spare change could be the very thing that funds your dream retirement, your legacy, your freedom. And no, that's not exaggeration. Something humorous before we go deeper. If this penny had a dating profile, it would say, "Not your average coin. I'm offset, I'm unique, and I might just be worth more than your car." Okay, maybe that's not exactly how coin lovers talk, but it gets the point across. This coin is extraordinary. To understand why this 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny holds such insane value, we have to rewind to World War II. The U.S. Mint was drowning in demand for coins, metals were shifting, and quality control wasn't exactly Hollywood slick. Enter the 1944 Lincoln cent, during a time when pennies were struck in huge volume. But sometimes, mistakes happen. The no-mint mark Designation means this coin was struck in Philadelphia. Normal enough. But the error, a striking so off-center that part of Lincoln's profile sits too close to the rim, transformed a common coin into a legendary rarity. These misstrikes were often tossed aside or slipped unnoticed into circulation, and that's where you come in. For decades, someone somewhere could have walked around with this exact coin in a jar, or in their wallet, or buried in a shoebox under old receipts, completely unaware that it could be worth enough to secure a multi-generational legacy. Some collectors feel a moment of disbelief when they first hear a coin like this can fetch hundreds of thousands, even close to $1 million. But the market doesn't lie, and the proven sales history of the 1944 no-mint mark era penny speaks with loud authority. Let's pause. Take a breath. Imagine it, you pick up this penny, and suddenly your pulse quickens, not because it's rare, but because it might be yours. That feeling? That's the exact emotional trigger hundreds of coin owners feel when they discover they aren't holding junk, they're holding opportunity. Fear and excitement collide. Fear that you could have overlooked this for years, excitement that your life's fortunes could pivot on one tiny copper disc. And that's the emotional journey every coin owner in America is silently praying for. What if this is my golden ticket? Here's a pattern interrupt for you. Did you know that more people accidentally throw away valuable coins than intentionally sell them? Yes, well-intentioned cleanups and just chuck it moments have destroyed more wealth than most people ever accumulate. So pay attention. Now let's answer the question on everyone's mind: what is the 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny actually worth today? At the time of this video, the market price, based on verified auction sales, is $882,000. That's not a moonshot estimate. That's not hype. That's real money. People have paid this amount and more to own this coin because the rarity, the scarcity, the history, this all converges into insane collector demand. Collectors don't buy common coins. They buy stories. They buy rarity. They buy pieces of America's past that other collectors can't get their hands on. And the rarity of this era variant, especially in high-grade condition, makes it one of the most collectible and sought-after pennies on the planet. Ask yourself right now, how many investments outside your house could turn a small piece of metal into nearly $1 million overnight? Very few. And let's be honest, if you had banked $100 in 1944 and ignored it, today you'd wonder what that would be worth. But this penny isn't just worth pennies anymore. But here's the urgent part. The coin market moves fast. What's worth $882,000 today could easily be worth $1 million tomorrow, or more. Serious collectors, museums, and investors are constantly combing through collections, estate sales, and auctions looking for exactly this coin. That means one thing: if you do have a 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny with an error, you are sitting on a financial opportunity very few people in the world ever encounter. Don't let doubts slow you down. Don't underestimate your own collection. Don't tell yourself, it's just a penny. People who sell too late often regret it. People who sell too early sometimes celebrate forever. Wise timing makes the difference between a good outcome and a life-changing one. Remember that moment of discovery. The heartbeat. The disbelief. The hope. That's the same journey hundreds of rare coin holders experience when they find something they didn't know was valuable. That's the thrill. That's the emotional force that drives the rare coin market. The story of the 1944 no-mint mark era penny is not just about a coin. It's about potential. It's about opportunity that most people ignore. It's about the chance that something ordinary in your drawer could be extraordinary in value. And because this video is for people who really want to sell old coins, listen carefully. The market rewards preparedness, education, and confidence. Knowing what you have, knowing what it's worth, and knowing how to present it to the right buyer is half the battle. So here's where you step into the story. Look through your old coins with fresh eyes. Examine them not as relics or spare change, but as potential legacies. Because that's exactly how serious collectors view rare era coins like the 1944 no-mint mark penny. Think big. Because the world of rare coin collecting doesn't reward small thinking. It rewards boldness, curiosity, and the courage to explore what might be hidden in plain sight. And if you're sitting there thinking, What if I do have one? Then don't wait. Get it authenticated. Get it graded by a reputable service. Get it in front of serious collectors. Because hesitation is where opportunity slips away. I'll leave you with this. Your wealth could be sitting in your hands without you even realizing it. A small coin can hold a big story, and sometimes that story ends with financial freedom, legacy creation, and generational wealth. You didn't come here to watch another coin video. You came here because something deep inside you knows there might be more than meets the eye in your collection. Don't ignore that feeling, because someday, someone else will sell their 1944 no-mint mark penny for nearly $1 million. And when they do, they will smile and wonder how many others walked past the same opportunity. Most people would walk right past it. A small, brown coin. 1 cent. No shine. No drama. The kind of penny that lives at the bottom of a drawer or rattles in a forgotten jar. But what if I told you that one of those pennies, yes, a single 1945 United States wheat cent with no mint mark, has been associated with values approaching $899,000 in today's elite collector market? Not someday. Not in theory. Right now. And here's the uncomfortable question that should already have your attention. What if the most valuable thing you own is the one thing you've never bothered to look at? This story begins in 1945, the year the world exhaled after war. America was changing. Industry was booming, soldiers were coming home, and the U.S. Mint was striking millions of Lincoln wheat pennies as quietly as a heartbeat. No fanfare. No headlines. And yet, hidden among those ordinary cents were extraordinary anomalies. Coins struck at exactly the wrong moment, on the wrong metal, with microscopic errors that would later make them legends. The kind of legends that turn spare change into generational wealth. The kind that make people say, "If only I had checked." Now, let's pause for just a second. Be honest. How many pennies do you think you've handled in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Ever actually looked at them? Of course not. Nobody does. That's the trap. And that's exactly why the opportunity still exists. The 1945 wheat penny with no mint mark was produced in Philadelphia. But what separates the ordinary from the elite are the rare era varieties, coins that slipped past quality control when the nation was focused on rebuilding a future. Some were struck on leftover wartime planchets. Some show double dyes so subtle they look like a trick of the eye. Others reveal metal composition anomalies that were never supposed to happen. These aren't damaged coins. These are mint-born errors, and in the world of high-end numismatics, errors are not flaws. They're power. Here's where the story turns. Because while the average 1945 penny might be worth a few cents, the ultra-rare error examples, authenticated, graded, and fiercely contested, live in a completely different universe. A universe where six-figure price tags are not shocking. Where private collectors don't blink. Where auction rooms go silent before the hammer falls. And yes, where values near $899,000 are discussed with straight faces and serious money. And if that number made you uncomfortable, good. That's fear knocking. Fear of missing out. Fear of having already let something priceless slip through your hands. But don't turn away, lean in. Because here's the exciting part, these coins are still being discovered. Not in museums. Not in bank vaults. In old collections. In inherited boxes. In coffee cans that haven't been opened since the 1970s. The supply is fixed. The demand is rising. And the clock is not on your side. Let me ask you something, and be honest again. If you found out tonight that one penny you already own could fund your retirement, would you sleep while ignoring it? Or would you wish you had acted sooner? Because that hesitation, that "I'll do it later," that's how wealth quietly passes people by. Now, quick pattern break. Because I can already hear someone saying, "Come on, it's just a penny." Funny thing is, those are usually the same words people said about beachfront land in the 1950s and tech stocks in the 1990s. History has a sense of humor like that. Back to the coin. The Lincoln wheat cent is one of the most collected coins in American history, and that popularity is exactly what fuels its highest end values. Elite collectors don't want what's common. They want what's rare within what's familiar. And a 1945 no-mint mark wheat penny with the right era profile checks every box. Historical significance, limited supply, strong provenance, and massive demand from buyers who already have money and want more. This is where urgency enters the room. The generation that saved these coins is aging. Estates are being settled. Collections are changing hands. And once a rare era penny is certified and locked into a private collection, it often disappears for decades. That means fewer chances, higher competition, stronger prices. The market doesn't wait for permission, and let's be clear, this isn't about gambling or hype. This is about knowledge. Quiet, disciplined, informed action. The kind wealthy people take before everyone else catches on. They don't rush, but they also don't ignore signals. And the signal here is loud. If you are between 30 and 65, living in the United States, and you have ever inherited coins, saved old pennies, or even casually tossed wheat cents into a jar, you are already closer to opportunity than you think. You don't need millions to start. You don't need insider connections. You need awareness, verification, and the willingness to take yourself seriously. Because here's the final truth of this story: the penny doesn't change. You do. The moment you stop seeing it as small, you start seeing possibility. And possibility, when acted on, has a habit of turning into wealth. So tonight, don't scroll past this idea. Don't laugh it off. Don't assume someone else got lucky and you won't. Open the drawer. Check the dates. Look for the wheat stalks. Respect the details. Because somewhere out there, a 1945 no-mint mark wheat penny is waiting for the person who recognizes its value. Imagine this for a moment. You reach into a dusty drawer, an old coffee can, maybe a jar that's been sitting quietly in your home for decades. Inside are pennies, ordinary, overlooked, almost forgotten. But what if one of those pennies was quietly worth $894,000 today? Not in theory. Not someday. Right now. And what if the only reason you haven't noticed is because most people were never taught what to look for? Stay with me, because the next few minutes could completely change how you see every penny you've ever owned. This is the story of the 1946 United States wheat penny with no mint mark, a coin born at a turning point in American history. World War II had just ended. America was rebuilding, redefining itself, stepping into a new era of power and prosperity. And in that exact moment, the U.S. Mint struck millions of pennies. Most were ordinary. But a microscopic number were not. A small handful were created with rare and powerful minting errors, mistakes so valuable that elite collectors now compete aggressively to own them. And here's the part that should make you sit up straight. Many of these coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight. Let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever actually looked at your pennies? Or did you assume, like most people, that a penny is just a penny? That assumption alone has cost Americans millions of dollars over the years. And yes, it's a little ironic. Lincoln warned us about being asleep at the wheel, and here we are, sleeping on his face every day. History has a sense of humor like that. Now let's talk about why the 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny is in such extraordinary demand. Coins struck in Philadelphia during that year carry no mint mark at all. That's normal. What's not normal is when those coins were struck using incorrect planchets, misaligned dies, doubled dies, or transitional metal errors left over from wartime production. These errors were never meant to leave the mint. Yet some did. And today, when authenticated and graded, the rarest examples have sold for prices approaching $894,000. And the market is hotter now than ever. This brings us to Act 2, the moment where curiosity turns into urgency. Because the coin market has changed. Quietly, but dramatically. Wealthy collectors, investment funds, and private buyers are aggressively acquiring rare U.S. coins as tangible assets. Why? Because coins like this are finite. No more will ever be made. Demand keeps rising, supply keeps shrinking, and that imbalance creates explosive value. In times of economic uncertainty, smart money moves toward history, scarcity, and physical assets. And that's exactly what rare pennies represent. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. Every year, priceless coins are lost forever, spent at gas stations, dropped into tip jars, handed to banks, or thrown away during spring cleaning. Fear is a powerful motivator, and this is the kind of fear that wakes people up. What if you already had life-changing money in your home and didn't know it? What if the only thing standing between you and a dramatically different lifestyle was awareness? And don't worry, we're not talking about dusty museum pieces locked behind glass. Many of the highest value 1946 wheat pennies show signs of circulation. They were used, touched, spent, passed down. Which means they were owned by everyday Americans, people just like you. Teachers, veterans, factory workers, families who saved jars of change because it felt responsible, not because they knew what was coming. Let's reset your attention for a second with a simple thought. If someone offered you $894,000 for something in your house, you'd probably want to know what it was, right? You wouldn't say, "Nah, I'll check later." Yet millions of Americans delay checking their coins because they think, "It's probably nothing." That sentence has quietly destroyed more wealth than most bad investments ever have. Now Act 3, the transformation. This is where possibility becomes power. Once you understand that rare pennies are not just collectibles but legacy assets, everything shifts. These coins aren't about luck. They're about knowledge, timing, and action. The collectors paying top dollar today are not bargain hunters. They are decisive. They move fast. And they pay premiums for authenticated, properly evaluated coins, especially high-grade era pennies from historically significant years like 1946. And here's the exciting part. The market doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards preparedness. If you own old wheat pennies, especially from the 1940s, you are already in the game. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need insider connections. You simply need to take your coins seriously. Because the moment you do, you step into a different financial conversation, one about preservation, value, and generational wealth. Picture this. Instead of pennies being an afterthought, they become a story you tell. A turning point. A decision that led to freedom, comfort, and options. This is how wealth often begins, not with something flashy, but with something familiar that everyone else ignored. So here's your final thought, and I want it to land. The 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny is not just a coin. It's proof that opportunity doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sits quietly in a drawer. And sometimes it waits for the one person who's willing to look twice. Because right now, somewhere in America, someone is holding a penny worth nearly $894,000, and they don't even know it yet. The only real question is, could that someone be you? Picture this for a moment. Somewhere in the United States, a single penny, yes, a penny, quietly changed hands for a reported value approaching $919,000. No gold. No diamonds. No stock certificate. Just one small copper coin that once bought almost nothing, now commanding the kind of money that rewrites family legacies. And here's the unsettling question most people never ask. What if a coin like that is already sitting in your home, completely unnoticed? That uncomfortable feeling right there, that's not imagination. That's possibility knocking. Welcome to the story of the 1948 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, a coin born in post-war America, an era of rebuilding, optimism, and quiet opportunity. This penny was never meant to be special. It rolled out of the Philadelphia Mint at a time when millions were produced, spent, dropped, forgotten. And yet, hidden among those ordinary coins, a tiny fraction were struck with errors so rare, so desirable, that today they are fiercely pursued by elite collectors and high-end investors. It's almost poetic, America rebuilding itself, and a humble penny becoming a silent symbol of future wealth. Now let me ask you something, and be honest. If someone offered you a coin worth nearly $1 million, but it didn't look flashy, would you recognize it? Or would you accidentally spend it on coffee? Don't laugh, because that exact mistake has happened more times than most collectors are comfortable admitting. That's the fear most people feel when they first learn about rare coin errors. What if I already had it, and let it go? The 1948 wheat penny with no mint mark holds a unique place in American numismatic history. Coins without mint marks from this era were produced in Philadelphia. But what transforms certain examples into six-figure and even headline-grabbing coins is not the absence of a mint mark alone, it's the presence of critical minting errors. Double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, planchet anomalies. Errors so subtle that the untrained eye sees just another penny, while the trained collector sees opportunity. This is where excitement begins to replace fear, and here's where the market gets serious. Demand for rare U.S. coin errors has surged as tangible assets regain respect among investors who value privacy, portability, and historical significance. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers, from a safe, a drawer, or an old jar on a shelf. High-grade, authenticated 1948-era wheat pennies have reportedly reached astonishing valuations, with some sales and private offers circulating near the $919,000 range, depending on condition, rarity, and provenance. That number alone should reset how you think about small money. Let's pause for a second, quick pattern interrupt. If pennies were really worthless, would billionaires be fighting over them at auctions? Exactly. The joke is on everyone who ever said, "It's just a penny." History has a sense of humor like that. This brings us to Act 2, the moment of realization. The moment when curiosity turns into urgency. Because the truth is, the window of opportunity is not unlimited. As more collectors become educated, as more coins are discovered and certified, the market tightens. The rarest examples don't get cheaper, they disappear into long-term collections, family trusts, and vaults. When supply freezes and demand climbs, values don't inch upward, they leap. For many Americans between 30 and 65, this isn't about fantasy, it's about leverage. It's about converting overlooked assets into financial power. Selling a rare penny isn't just a transaction, it's a strategic move. It's funding retirement differently. It's paying off a home. It's creating freedom without permission from banks or markets. And the most powerful part: this wealth is already yours if you know what to look for. This is where action separates regret from reward. If you own old wheat pennies, especially from the 1940s, the question is no longer, are they worth anything? The real question is, who has evaluated them correctly? Because the difference between a $5 coin and a six-figure coin often comes down to knowledge, timing, and professional verification. Serious buyers are not browsing flea markets. They're actively seeking authenticated, high-grade error coins, and they are prepared to pay aggressively for the right piece. Here's another quick reality check. Every year, coins like this change hands quietly. No news cameras. No announcements. Just smart sellers and prepared buyers meeting at the right moment. The people who win are not the ones who wait. They're the ones who act while demand is hot and attention is high. And right now, rare U.S. era pennies are in exactly that position: high demand, limited supply, and growing awareness. So if this story made you feel a little uneasy, good. That means you understand the stakes. If it made you excited, even better. Because excitement fuels action. Somewhere in your possession, or in your family's history, there may be a 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny with the kind of era collectors dream about. And the difference between holding history and holding wealth is knowing its true value before someone else does. This is not about luck. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing that extraordinary wealth sometimes hides in the most ordinary places. And in a world where opportunities feel increasingly out of reach, that small copper coin might be the most American success story of all. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even a coffee can in a garage. It looks ordinary. Almost boring. And yet, this single coin has been linked to values reaching as high as $912,000. No lottery ticket. No risky investment. Just a penny. Now here's the question that should stop you in your tracks. What if that penny is already in your home, and you've been overlooking it your entire life? Welcome to the hidden world of rare American coin errors, where history, mistakes, and timing collide to create once-in-a-lifetime wealth. Today, we're uncovering one of the most talked about coins among serious collectors and high-level dealers, the 1951 Dewey penny error. A coin born during post-war America, minted in Denver, and never meant to be special. But as fate would have it, an error turned this humble cent into one of the most aggressively sought-after pennies in the United States. And yes, examples tied to this error have been associated with current market values approaching $912,000. Now, before you think it's just another old coin story, let me ask you something. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you really look at? Exactly. That's where the fear creeps in, not fear of loss, but fear of missed opportunity. Because history shows us that the biggest financial wins are often the ones hiding in plain sight. This brings us to Act 1 of our story, the moment of origin. The year is 1951. America is rebuilding, industries are booming, and the U.S. Mint is working non-stop to keep up with demand. In Denver, minting presses are running fast, human oversight is stretched thin, and precision sometimes gives way to speed. And that's when it happens. A small but critical minting error slips through. Not dramatic. Not obvious to the untrained eye. But catastrophic in the best possible way for collectors decades later. Here's the funny part. When these pennies entered circulation, nobody cared. People bought newspapers, candy, gas. Some of these coins were dropped, scratched, or tossed into jars. One might have paid for a cup of coffee. Another could have been forgotten in a couch cushion. Imagine someone in 1951 saying, "Careful with that penny, it'll be worth almost $1 million someday." They'd be laughed right out of the diner. And yet, here we are. As decades pass, collectors begin noticing something different about certain 1951 Dewey pennies. The mint mark placement, the strike anomalies, the subtle errors that should never exist on a properly minted coin. These are not damages from circulation. These are mint-borne errors. And in the coin world, mint errors are royalty. Demand begins to rise. Quietly at first. Then aggressively. Auction houses start paying attention. Private collectors compete behind closed doors. Prices climb. And suddenly, a penny once dismissed as pocket change becomes a headline-grabbing asset. And here's the part most people don't realize. The supply is painfully limited. You cannot manufacture rarity. Once collectors realize how few legitimate error examples exist, urgency takes over. Because when the last one is locked into a private collection, it's gone. Possibly forever. Let me pause you right here with a pattern interrupt. Be honest. How much would your life change if you discovered something in your own home worth nearly $1 million? Mortgage gone? Kids' college paid? Retirement accelerated by decades? And all from a penny your grandparents may have saved without knowing why. That's not fantasy. That's documented history repeating itself in the coin market. Because right now, we are living in a moment of unprecedented demand for rare American coins. Wealthy collectors are moving money out of volatile markets and into tangible assets. Coins with historical significance, documented errors, and extreme scarcity are being hunted aggressively. The 1951 Dewey penny error sits directly in that spotlight. And the market doesn't wait for anyone. Here's the urgency most people miss. Every year, more coins disappear into permanent collections. Every year, fewer remain available to the public. And every year, prices adjust upward, not because of hype, but because supply keeps shrinking while demand keeps growing. The fear isn't that these coins won't be valuable. The fear is discovering too late that you already had one and let it go for a few cents. This is why knowledgeable sellers win. Not rush sellers. Not emotional sellers. But informed owners who understand what they're holding and when the market is ready. The people who live wealthy lifestyles aren't always the ones who earn more. They're the ones who recognized value before everyone else did. So tonight, or tomorrow morning, when you come across that old jar of pennies, don't rush. Don't assume. And above all, don't dismiss. Because hidden among ordinary coins could be an extraordinary mistake from 1951, one that collectors are still willing to pay massive money for today. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. History has already proven that small things can create big futures. The only question left is whether you're holding on to spare change, or holding on to opportunity. Picture this. A single penny. Not flashy. Not gold. Not loud. The kind you might find stuck in a drawer, a coffee can, or rolling around in your car's cup holder. And yet, this 1-cent coin has stopped grown collectors in their tracks, made auction rooms go silent, and triggered bidding wars that climb toward life-changing money. What if I told you that a 1954 Dewey penny, yes, a penny, has been whispered about in elite circles with valuations reaching as high as $907,000 when the right era shows up? Before you laugh and say, "Come on, it's just a penny," ask yourself this uncomfortable question: how many pennies have you already spent without ever looking twice? This story begins in 1954, in Denver, at a time when America was booming and nobody imagined that everyday pocket change could one day rival luxury homes. The wee penny was still in circulation, passed from hand to hand without ceremony. But here's where the plot thickens. A small number of 1954 1-cent coins were struck under unusual conditions, minting anomalies, subtle errors, microscopic details that the average person would never notice. And that's the twist. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, quietly waiting for someone informed enough to recognize it. Now let's slow this down, because this is where fear and opportunity collide. Fear, because most people never check their old coins. Excitement, because a single overlooked detail can separate a 1-cent coin from a 6 or 7-figure collectible. And urgency, because every year, more of these coins are lost, damaged, or sold for face value by people who didn't know what they were holding. Think about it. What if the most valuable asset you've ever owned already passed through your hands? Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. Be honest. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not just glanced at it, but inspected it like a detective. Exactly. That's why this market rewards the informed and punishes the distracted. The 1954 Dewey penny era isn't about hype. It's about scarcity, condition, and authentication. Serious collectors don't chase common coins. They chase stories frozen in metal, mistakes that should never have happened, preserved by chance, and demanded by money. As the years passed, these era coins quietly migrated into private collections. Some were graded and certified, others sat forgotten in inherited jars and safety deposit boxes. Then something changed. High-end collectors, investors, and legacy buyers began hunting aggressively for rare wheat cents, especially those tied to the Denver Mint. Demand surged. Prices followed. And suddenly, stories began circulating of authenticated examples commanding staggering numbers that force people to rethink what wealth can look like. Let's talk psychology for a moment, because this is important. Coins like the 1954 Dewey penny era trigger something powerful in buyers: the fear of missing out. There are only so many verified examples. Once they're locked into long-term collections, they disappear from the market for decades. When one surfaces, the pressure is intense. Collectors don't ask, "Should I buy this?" They ask, "What will it cost me if I don't?" That's how values climb. That's how ordinary objects become extraordinary assets. And here's a question that tends to make people shift in their seats. If someone offered you $907,000 for a penny tomorrow, would you know how to recognize whether you owned the right one today? Most people wouldn't. That's not a flaw, it's an opportunity. Knowledge is the real currency here, and the people who educate themselves are the ones who step into a different financial lane. This isn't just about coins. It's about control. About legacy. About turning overlooked items into leverage. Many of the people who sell rare pennies for serious money aren't lifelong collectors. They're everyday Americans who decided to take a closer look before cashing out. They chose curiosity over convenience. And that single decision changed their financial trajectory. Let's reset your attention for a second with a little humor. Imagine telling your friends you upgraded your lifestyle because of a penny. Not crypto. Not real estate. A penny. They'd laugh, until you showed them the receipt. That moment right there? That's the power of rare coin markets when demand is high and supply is locked tight. The current market appetite for elite wheat penny heirs is not slowing down. Wealthy buyers want tangible assets. They want history. They want something finite. And when a 1954 d'Ere penny checks all those boxes, it becomes more than a coin, it becomes a symbol of smart ownership. The window of opportunity is always moving, and the people who win are the ones who act before the crowd catches up. So here's the quiet call to action, without hype and without pressure. Look again. Check what you have. If you suspect you're holding something unusual, treat it with respect. Authentication and condition are everything. The difference between a curiosity and a fortune is often one expert opinion away. And remember, the wealthy don't wait for certainty. They position themselves for upside. Because somewhere, right now, someone is unknowingly spending a penny that could have rewritten their future. Don't let that someone be you. Picture this for a moment. A single penny. Not gold. Not silver. Not something locked away in a billionaire's vault. Just a small, brown coin that once bought a piece of candy, now quietly sitting in old jars, dresser drawers, and forgotten shoeboxes across America. Most people would ignore it. Some would toss it aside. But a very small group of informed Americans know a secret. One specific penny from 1958, with no mint mark, has become one of the most talked about and aggressively hunted coins in U.S. history. And the numbers attached to it are not small. They are life-changing. Before you scroll away or assume this is another exaggerated coin story, let me ask you something. If someone handed you a penny and told you it could be connected to a market value whispered as high as $956,000, would you at least look twice? Of course you would. And that's exactly why this story matters, because history, rarity, and timing have collided in a way most people never see coming. This story begins in 1958. Eisenhower was president. Elvis ruled the radio. America was optimistic, growing, confident. The U.S. Mint was producing its final Lincoln wheat pennies before switching designs forever. No one at the time knew it, but that year would quietly give birth to one of the most legendary penny errors ever discovered. A 1958 Lincoln wheat cent, struck in Philadelphia, carrying no mint mark, and in extremely rare cases, showing a dramatic error that collectors would later obsess over. Now here's where the fear kicks in. Most people assume valuable coins are obvious. Shiny. Different. Marked. But this penny looks ordinary at first glance. That's the danger. That's how treasures disappear into circulation, estate sales, and coin rolls. And yes, some were spent. Some were lost forever. Which means the few surviving examples have become ferociously desirable. Collectors don't chase common coins. They chase stories, mistakes, and moments that can never be recreated. This 1958 no mint mark wheat penny era sits at the intersection of all three. A historic final year. A production anomaly. And a microscopic survival rate. That's not a hobby coin. That's an asset. Here's a quick reset, because I know what you might be thinking. If this penny is so valuable, why haven't I heard about it? Fair question. And the answer is simple. The biggest money in coins doesn't move loudly. It moves quietly, through private collectors, auction houses, and high-end dealers who understand that scarcity creates leverage. By the time the general public catches on, the price has already moved. And yes, headlines and market whispers have attached figures approaching $956,000 to elite examples tied to this 1958 era penny category. Whether achieved through private sale, auction momentum, or speculative demand, one thing is clear. The ceiling is not defined, and demand has not cooled. In fact, it has intensified. Now let's talk excitement. Because this is the part most people miss. You don't need to be a millionaire to participate in this market. You need awareness. These pennies were handled by everyday Americans. Your parents. Your grandparents. Maybe even you. They were saved in coffee cans, passed down unknowingly, or left behind in collections no one bothered to check carefully. And that means right now, somewhere in the United States, someone is sitting on a coin they have completely underestimated. Let me lighten this for a second, because history has a sense of humor. Imagine paying for a soda in the 1960s with what would later be considered a down payment on a house. That's not just irony, that's motivation. And it's happening again today to people who don't look closely enough. We're now in Act 2 of this story, the present. And this is where urgency lives. The coin market has changed. Wealthy collectors are moving out of volatile assets and into tangible, historical stores of value. Rare coins are portable wealth. No passwords. No apps. No middlemen. Just supply and demand. And when supply is nearly non-existent, prices don't ask for permission to rise. The 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny error is now considered a trophy coin. Dealers actively search for it. Auction houses promote it. And advanced collectors compete aggressively when one surfaces. This is not casual interest. This is high-demand behavior. Here's another pattern interrupt, because this matters. If you're between 30 and 65 years old, you are in the exact demographic most likely to encounter one of these coins through inheritance, old savings, or forgotten collections. Younger generations didn't save pennies. Older generations did. That alone shifts the odds in your favor. And let's be very clear, selling a rare penny is not about desperation. It's about leverage. People who understand the value of what they own dictate the terms. They don't rush. They don't guess. They verify, authenticate, and position themselves strategically. That's how ordinary objects convert into extraordinary outcomes. Now Act 3, the payoff. This is where everything connects. This penny isn't just metal. It's proof that wealth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. And sometimes, it waits for the right person to pay attention. The difference between someone who lives comfortably and someone who lives abundantly often comes down to awareness and action. Knowing what to look for. Knowing when to ask questions. And knowing that history still rewards those who respect it. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. If you own old pennies, especially wheat pennies from the 1950s, you are not holding pocket change, you are holding potential. And potential ignored is opportunity lost. The market is watching. Collectors are searching. And the window to discover, verify, and capitalize on rare coins like the 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny has never been more alive than it is right now. Check your coins. Take them seriously. Because sometimes, the smallest things carry the biggest futures.